you can't have an AI transformation with have-nots. And so what I mean by that is your whole organization goes through a transformation. You have to get the whole organization bought in on AI change before jumping into this like very disruptive level of automation that can happen in an organization. There's just so much greenfield growth to be used in these newest generations of like generative AI. And so when I think about that, I think my first kind of tactical thing would be to focus on the basics and make sure we've really nailed it before we start to get to the panacea of sheer automation across our entire organization. If I can remove 5 friction points from an employee's day, then employees unlock to do the things they're great at. Whereas if I'm taking high friction use cases and disrupting my friend or my relationships, they're finding themselves in a position where that use case may have been valuable, but created more friction downstream.
Welcome to AI by Design podcast. Brings MSP leaders into real, unscripted conversations about innovation that actually works. Hosted by Kaila, it's focused on turning AI into measurable business impact.
Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sunny, I'm excited to be here.
So great to see you back here, my friend. And a lot of progress, I know, personally, professionally, happened. And I normally say if our future is bigger than our past, and we're measuring success backwards, not with other people, not with other things, it's just our own journey. And that's where the happiness is. That's where the gratitude is. That's where a lot of joy and satisfaction is. And I want to start there. I want to learn about your overall journey and the progress that you have made since last time you were here at the podcast.
Yeah, Sonny, it's been a handful of years and a very busy set of them at that. You know, over the last handful of years, I have been fortunate and very, very blessed, right? You know, I have personally added a couple little ones in my home. We've moved. I don't even think I had been married at that point with you, Sonny. I think we were about to enter that point. So a lot of life changes. And you know, that really does help ground you into what makes you real. You know, the personal side is what has kept me grounded across all my different journeys. And I'm very fortunate there. On the professional side, sold my last business, had a wonderful stint and tenure at Auvik, where I spent 3 years doing things around business, around product and strategy and AI implementation. And very fortunate for that time, very blessed to be able to learn from leaders there, and took a little time off. And now I'm back at it. My 4th stroke at the startup journey, a couple failed ones, you know, good success one, and hoping for another good success on my pathway here.
That's awesome. And that's a nice segue to what we are here for, to talk artificial intelligence, innovation, what's happening in the marketplace when it comes to state of AI in general and state of AI in the MSP space. So my first question to you, John, is when you look at how businesses, it could be MSPs, it could be SMBs, are approaching AI today, what's the biggest gap you see between where they are and where they need to be?
My take is a little bit of a hot one on the biggest gap. You know, I myself have helped lead generative AI implementations, agentic AI implementations. We even use digital worker employees at organizations. So we're using all the different waves of AI that are out there. But one of the biggest gaps that I feel like is being misrepresented or just missed in period, I think is the right way to say it, is the sheer volume of value creation that can be done with just generative AI to get started. I think everybody's kind of like hopping to these steps. They're saying, hey, I want to really unlock OpenClaw, or I want to unlock agentic transformation and automation. And there's just so much greenfield growth to be used in these newest generations of like generative AI. And so when I think about that, I think my first kind of tactical thing would be to focus on the basics and make sure we've really nailed it before we start to get to the panacea of sheer automation across our entire organization.
Yeah, that's well said. Crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's excited to run because the run is so exciting, right? It's agents doing work for you. It's, you know, automation's happening in the background. Before we can do that, we do surely need to crawl.
100%. And my next question to you, John, is a lot of leaders feel pressure to do something with AI, but don't know where to start from strategic angle point of view. What framework or mindset should they adopt before choosing any tool?
Yeah, I think leaning in and understanding where value really fits inside the organization's mission critical here. And I have a unique perspective to it, Sunny. Mostly organizations feel this pressure because the board's pushing down on them, right? And they're saying do something with it, but they're not really giving you a framework or a guideline to say what that something is. I think first of all, I said this before at my leadership position when I was running AI transformation before. You can't have an AI transformation with have-nots. And so what I mean by that is your whole organization goes through a transformation. That is your first step. You have to get the whole organization bought in on AI change before jumping into this like very disruptive level of automation that can happen in an organization. So you can't have AI transformation without have nots is the first way I'd look at it. If you're looking for your very first step, it's who haven't you pulled along for your journey and how do you pull them in? And then my second framing would be like when you're ready for more advanced types AI, like what projects do I want to work against? What automations do I want to build? Normal business school teaches you to put them on an XY chart. X for value and Y for effort. And you want to find these really low effort, high value use cases. One area I would focus on is a Z axis here. And I call that Z axis friction. Organizations are kind of stepping over that one when it comes to AI. They're coming in and saying, I can automate this whole pipeline and it's high effort or high value, low effort. But what they're not looking at is how much friction is it creating for their employees, for their customers, for their relationships? Because when you actually plot friction into the mapping of where you're implementing AI, you find that if I can remove 5 friction points from an employee's day, that employees unlock to do the things they're great at. Whereas if I'm taking high friction use cases and disrupting my friend or my relationships, they're finding themselves in a position where that use case may have been valuable, but created more friction downstream. And so that's kind of one little way that I like to think about it as an XYZ chart, especially around AI.
Can you give an example from like we both serve MSP space as a channel. Do you have any example where it relates to that XY thinking?
When I think about friction, I think about it at a personal level and a relationship level. And so an example here, Sunny, I started my day off today. I had one-on-ones with my entire, team that reports up to me to get my day kicked off. A friction point for me in the past used to be preparing the one-on-ones to make sure I was tactically ready to get into those interactions. I would make sure I had 15, 20 minutes of prep. What normally happens now is Sunday night, I have a co-pilot scheduled task to prepare what happened last week. It reads all my reviews, it reads all my meetings, and it preps a one-on-one for me. So that means when I get in the morning, instead of focusing on preparing knowledge, I'm walking into a conversation loaded in. A friction point in the inverse position might be sales and building relationships in a sales pipeline. It's really high friction if all of a sudden you're getting automated sales from John Harden. That feels so insincere. And so that creates a lot of friction. And so I want to remove those points. And, when I think about that Z-axis of friction, I think about what are the things that force context switching in a day-to-day job? And how do we remove that context switching? And how do we reduce the friction of the employee's job day to day? And when we remove those context switching and those friction points, again, we unlock the employee's capacity to do the things they're great at.
That's a great example where time saved is the ROI, right? So rather than doing a lot of manual work to prepare for your meetings, it could be internal, it could be external. You being able to take that as a friction point and create a use case or solution where you are able to buy back that time is a lot of ROI and a lot of like the way the speed changes, the quality of our meetings, our thinking, because rather than preparing data and reports and agendas, you're basically starting with the conversation. So that's a great, great example. Now, my next question is, John, how do you see AI reshaping the relationship between MSPs and SMBs, basically their customers they serve over the next, let's say, year to 2 years?
Yeah, I think as we look into the MSP ecosystem, we're seeing a lot of opportunity for MSPs to automate some of the most cost and prohibitive areas of their business around like help desk and dealing with like the technical interactions of problems to be solved. We're going to end up leaning into those, right? We're going to end up leaning into some level of service desk automation in our industry. And when I look at that, I look at the fact that if we all adopted service desk automation today, our margins would be all wonderful, right? Like we'd all be making a lot of money because now one of our most expensive parts of our business is automated away. And we could add that to any different use case. It can be beyond the service desk. It can be into knowledge-based management and all these different things. But the point still ends up being this. If our margins all of a sudden become great, what's going to end up happening is margin compression because people are going to fight to bid a little bit lower and the prices are going to become commoditized, as we've seen in basically any business economic cycle. And so when I look out in the next 12 to 24 months, I think MSPs kind of have a choice. They can come in and they can say, we can go down this margin compression rate and be just a value creator at a low cost economics, or we can lean into this new margin compression and these new hours we've created with all this automation and find new value to deliver. And I think that's a lot of what this conversation and our industry is about right now is if we're going to be something new or more, it's probably got to be around this AI topic. It's got to be delivering more value and more strategic relationship value than transactional ticket management or something along the lines that we've taken for granted in the past.
Do you have any example in mind where the old way of value creation, value delivery, and the impact versus the new way?
Yeah, I think the old way of value creation was, MSPs, for lack of a better term, in a lot of cases are looked at as like insurance, right? I pay my MSP so I know that my business keeps the lights on.
Thank you for watching the AI by Design podcast. Stay tuned for more conversations at the intersection of AI, leadership, and innovation. Follow us on our channels and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.